Any questions as we're wrapping up the off-season program before training camp?
Saw Alvin Kamara had the red jersey on to start practice.
Well, I think it was more about he and Teddy switching jerseys. Look, there's some. As soon as they did it, I started looking at them a little differently. Like there's a couple of quarterback runs we could use. But anyway, he could wear a number of jerseys, I think.
When you say he could wear a number of jerseys, I mean,
He could do a number of things.
right. Going into his third year, to what extent does that cause you? I mean, I don't know if you could describe in any way how you spend time trying to imagine new things that he could do.
Well, look. It starts with some of the stuff he does extremely well now. That still sells, meaning that's still really, really good. He's got the ability to return punts, return kicks. His flexibility in the passing game and in the running game allows you, I would say, more so your game week preparation relative to the team you're playing than this whole new package of, But look, when we drafted him, it starts with he's got real exceptionally high football IQ. So he can get bored with it, and that's why we give him one of those little fidget things you twist when you can't pay attention. Spinner, is that what it is? Yeah. So he gets one of those fidget spinners.
Can you wildcat him, coach, or would you prefer
No.
not to expose him to that?
Well, look, you can, and yet I'd rather the two end of it. I'd rather he on the front end with Taysom on the other end. But you can, yeah.
Have you ever given any others?
I know he threw a 4th and 1 play action pass at Tennessee from a wildcat set, kind of like a tight end pop pass. It was pretty good. Yeah, I think he can.
You have another guy's
He's athletic.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
You have another guy's fidget spinners before? Is that a?
It's the first. Alvin got the first. It was last fall.
Did it have a design on it? A lot of.
Nope, it was just simple. Hey, when you're getting bored like you do sometimes, because he's real smart, so he had his little fidget spinner.
Talking to some other people, one thing they really remember from his rookie year was that first run against the Chargers in the preseason. How much was that sort of like a eye-opening moment?
Well, there was a stretch of 2 games there at Cleveland and the Chargers. We saw the skill set relative to being a receiver, and if you remember during that camp, Adrian, Mark, and he were all getting a lot of reps, and we're just kind of into the pads. But I think that was one of those. There's a series of moments, but that was one of them where it looked pretty good off tackle, and then there were a few more that season and that were really impressive.
Coach, at what point did everyone just have to say we have to move past the way last season ended and into 2019?
Well, I think, look, to answer that, the correct way I say it, that probably would vary per player, but I don't think it's something we're discussing or right now. Our focus is forward, and it hasn't been something that has been a topic of motivation. It's still about putting yourself in a position to to get back and look. Every team at this time of the year is talking about the postseason and the opportunity to put a good season together and play in the postseason. It starts with trying to win your division first, but I would say for most, I'm sure that's in the rearview mirror.
Sean, this is mostly about install. What did you think of what you saw of some of the newer guys, whether it be Jared or Eric?
I thought it was really good. Look, there's a lot they get in a short period of time. While they're also catching up in the weight room, while they're also catching up with their conditioning. So I think when camp comes, then we begin that same installation that they've had now. And so there's a lot of repetition in the early stages, which is part of learning.
So when you get a guy like Taylor Stallworth who makes a team as an undrafted rookie, do you see going into year 2 any sort of different sort of confidence, demeanor?
Yeah, I think you do. A player who's been here now, a player who's developed more in the weight room. and a player who's gotten to taste it. You know, I mean, you get a year under your belt as a free agent, and you recognize the hard work that goes into that. So, you know, he'll be someone we look forward to seeing during camp.
Coach, obviously it's hard to figure out what you're really getting out of the offensive lineman and when nobody's in pads. I mean, what have you kind of seen from Eric? And I mean, has he kind of shown what you guys wanted to see when you guys drafted him?
Yeah, I think he's exceptionally smart. I think he picks things up well. He's a strong player. So some of that relative to your strength in what we're doing in these drills, maybe you don't get to see as much of. But, you know, just the under center snaps that may have occurred more in this offseason than he was used to in college, that type of thing. But yeah, I'm anxious to see him as we get started, and I think that you know, he's someone that's picked things up very well.
What was the World War II museum visit like for Liz?
I think it was fantastic, and you know, on the 75th anniversary of D-Day, and look, we just happened to be the city that hosts that museum. I think that worked out well, where we could get on buses before it opened and spend some time and just see it all. It's a fabulous museum. There, we had a chance to meet 2 veterans, you know, that fought during that time. I think it was good for the team, you know, relative to we had a little short video before we left talking about that day and the sacrifice that day that took place to afford us some of the things that we have now. So I mean, it was I thought it was really good.
Coach, what are some of the biggest takeaways, I think, from this off-season training you guys have kind of had so far, and are you kind of excited with what you kind of saw?
Yeah, I would definitely say, look, there's no specific takeaway. We're teaching, we're giving them the information, we're getting them in the weight room, which is most important. You know, getting their weights right, building up their strength and stamina, and you know, it's a process. But you know, I like the health of where we're at right now overall, and you know, the key is to put ourselves in the best position at training camp so we can make the right decisions relative to the roster.
How long do you know before you have an idea what kind of team you have?
I don't know that, you know, honestly, and I say that I don't know that you know until you start the first quarter pole of the season, but you feel the experience and the competitive nature of guys. But I think, look, we're trained as coaches to prepare in a way and prepare the players in a way where each week, you know, there's 31 others training. So it's hard to measure this invisible race that's taking place this early where everyone else is at. You just got to assume they're going, you know, they're going full speed and making gains and improving their team. And so the focus becomes a lot more just inward relative to yourself, you know, and so that's where we've tried to keep it now.
Sean, looking in the back end of the running back group, Washington, Brees and Zigbo, Buck Allen, is it all a matter of how they contribute on special teams?
That's an important part of it, Bobby. That's an important part of it, and yet you still want to see someone that can function as a runner. But I think when you're a player, maybe at any position, you know, 2 deep or 3 deep, you know, the more you can do when it comes to your game day, then, you know, the better position you put yourself in.
Coach, obviously it's early. Marcus Davenport, what does he kind of look like, I guess, going from year 1 to year 2?
He's doing well.
The biggest differences, I guess.
He's doing well. I mean, right now we're not in pads, but he's doing a good job.
Coach, just wanted to ask you, he only coached here 1 year, but you and Ed Ogeron maintained a good friendship.
Sure.
What makes him special? What kind of job you think he's doing?
Look, he's passionate about football. I think he's doing a great job. You know, when you look at someone who's from this state and loves the game, and you know, is a guy that I know guys that work with him and for him, how highly they speak of him, and I think I know he's a fantastic recruiter. So we follow those guys closely. It's good to see Ed in that position. You know, he's going to do well.
When you see clips of him trying to get his players fired up and stuff, do you have any specific thoughts? Or
I haven't seen those clips. I've seen clips where it's like the neck veins are coming out, but I haven't seen those clips. All right, thank you.
Drew, you've had a lot of backup quarterbacks. Today, you had one that was a little bit off.
Alvin? Yeah, the old jersey swap kind of threw us off there early on. He's definitely a guy that could probably get out there and do it. That's the scary thing. He's such a phenomenal athlete, and he always talks about wanting to throw the ball. So I don't know. We might go back to those days with LaDainian Tomlinson where he was throwing 3 and 4 touchdown passes a year. Not such a bad thing.
You ready to catch one?
Absolutely. Just call my number. I was ready the whole year. Most of the time they just have me stand out there and look handsome.
Did you have one?
I told them I'm ready to catch one.
How about your real San Diego?
Yeah, I had one. Yeah. And caught. I caught a touchdown from LT 2003 in Oakland on the dirt. It was early in the year, the baseball dirt. So it was basically like left front pylon, like sliding into home. Got the touchdown.
Drew, how about your actual backup, Teddy Bridgewater? Has he really made an impression on you in the last 6 months, especially seeing him run this playbook for the first time?
Yeah. So obviously we know how that all transpired last year. You know, he came in right before the season, so big learning curve. You're jumping right into a regular season with a new offense and a lot of new things. So I think our coaches, him, they've all looked forward to this offseason where he could get a lot of reps and a lot of time under his belt. And there's no doubt he's an extremely talented guy, but he works at it, and I think this offense suits him very well. A lot of things that we do and a lot of the capabilities that we have, and obviously with the creativity that we're able to incorporate to everything we do. So I think guys have a comfort level with him. I think he's got a great comfort level with the offense, and he's shown that throughout camp.
What's the adjustment been like with Eric McCoy at center, just kind of getting used to him?
Yeah, I mean, just like any new center, and just the pace at which we operate. Each week we started adding stuff, and I think in the beginning you try to just be very basic and very elementary, and then as you get going, you try to make it a bit more complicated, just to, and we threw him in the fire. So I think that's the only way you really get better, and you got to stress yourself a little bit and put yourself in those uncomfortable situations. And I think all that's going to do is serve you well down the road as we continue to get more reps together. And then, as an offense, we kind of put in the whole playbook. But there's just so much communication that happens between quarterback and center. And so, add up the reps that we've had during OTAs and minicamp, it's really not that many, compared to a guy like, Max Unger, or a guy like Jonathan Goodwin, or, other centers that we've had here that just, training camp, we're going to get, 50 times as many reps as we got here in the last couple of days. So that'll be really good for both of us.
Drew, how would you compare Ingram and Murray? I mean, when you watch film and the expectations, obviously with Murray going forward.
Yeah. Obviously, I was very familiar with Mark, played together for 8 years. Latavius has impressed me in a lot of ways. He's such a big physical guy. Obviously, we're not in pads out here, so you can't comment on a ton of just, the pure running style or physicality or anything yet. Certainly, from watching on film from Oakland to Minnesota, he definitely plays with that edge. I think he's picked up the offense well thus far, and it's nice when you can have two backs. Obviously for the last 2 years with Mark and Alvin, gives you a lot of gives you a lot of flexibility and gives you a lot of creativity. So hopefully that'll be the same with him.
Going back to Alvin, thinking back on his rookie year, offseason, I mean, was there a moment where you like realized, you know, how special he could be?
Yeah, you know, obviously we'd signed Adrian. You know, so we had Adrian and Mark, and then you bring in Alvin, and it was just one of those where he just needed repetition, right? And so early on, a lot of those reps were going to Mark, they were going to Adrian Peterson, and so it wasn't until, I mean, during training camp, you know, you'd see flashes, but I don't think it was until maybe that Miami game in London, right, where all of a sudden Alvin goes off and you realize, man, this could be a feature guy, you know, not just a third down, scat back, get him out of the backfield, get him in space. I mean, he can do everything. And, you know, I think hence was the decision then to trade Adrian, and then Alvin became a staple.
How would you describe his mental approach to the game, or his curiosity about
Alvin?
You know, what you know and things like that?
You talking about Alvin?
Yeah.
You talking about the way that he comes to me for that information? No, is that what you're asking?
Well, we're under the impression that he somehow wants to emulate you in terms of understanding how to read defenses and what the scheme of the play.
That's why he put the red jersey on today. He thought it was like, you know, some Superman cape. You know, it's just like magically it would happen. He's a highly intelligent guy. He's pretty inquisitive. You know, I think he's just he's such a fun-loving guy too. You know, I mean, when he's out here, it's that great mix of you know, he knows when to work, but he's going to have fun doing it. You know, and he does have a thirst for knowledge. You know, whenever there's something that comes up and I grab him and we start talking about something, it's not. I mean, it's one of these like, okay, I hear it. I'm absorbing it, I'm visualizing it, and then I can go out and execute it. I mean, there's a level of awareness with him that I think is unique. He picks up on things very quickly. I think that's unique. And so then combine that with exceptional athletic skills, and you get the player that he is.
Drew, how difficult is the current situation for you? Can you say anything about, has it been taxing for you? Or
yeah, it's been very stressful. And it's ongoing, but you know, we'll get through it.
But to not be here, you know, and be away is kind of
it was
weird
tough
for you, huh?
Yeah, very tough, very tough. Obviously, I'm quarterback of this football team. You know, I want to be with the team, but unfortunately, there was things that were a little bit out of our control that we had to take care of, and so take care of that and take life as it comes.
Were you with the team last week when they went to the D-Day Museum?
No.
At what point did you allow yourself to move past the way last year ended and into 2019? Was that a difficult process?
Say that one more time.
At what point did you move past the way last season ended and towards the 2019 season?
You know, it took a while, but you know, once I get into my training, you know, March, April, and then obviously May, I become very focused on the things I need to work on to get better, and circle up with all my mentors, the guys that have meant so much to me over the course of my career, and tell me how it is. And you know, we come up with a plan and a process for how I'm going to get better and approach the off season. So I did that this off season just like I always do. Had some new wrinkles to work on, which was good, and feel really good about where that's brought me thus far.
Last question, guys.
Drew, in your experience, a player like Marshon, who's had a lot of success his first 2 years, how does somebody take that and build on it and kind of continue to grow?
You know, you know, he's another guy who, you know, kind of interesting, maybe like Alvin in some ways, where there's this obviously athletic ability, this skill set that fits very well with being a great player, but there's some smarts, you know, there's some intellect, there's some awareness that exists that is a bit unusual for such a young player, and so wherever that comes from, however that was developed, it's obviously a great trait, and you know, something that has allowed him over the last 2 years to just continue to get better. And I think that's what I appreciate is, I think it's very easy for a guy who experiences early success to feel like it's just natural and it's just going to happen. And man, that's not the way it works in this league. And you got to work at it each and every year. And it's almost like the better you become, and the more they're gunning for you, right? And so I think Marshon realizes that. And you know, no better opportunity than every day in practice for him and Mike Thomas to go at it, right? You know, you talk about two of the best in the game. So I think, you know, it's that adage, iron sharpens iron. You know, those guys, I think, make each other better and in turn make the team better. All right, guys. Thanks.